But we're all trying
Resignation watch. Resignation watch. It's like looking for a rare animal in the wild. It's like, is that the Theresa May? That is the Theresa May. She's finally, that's what they're expecting anyway, to give her resignation day. The last that I heard was that she was still going to try to fight on, but now it seems like she's finally coming out here to give that letter. Because keep in mind, she was supposed to put her bill up, and they pushed the withdrawal bill to June. Theresa May may throw a curveball to these people out here who are thinking that she's going to resign. I'm looking at these newspaper headlines that are telling her to go. Brexit, the BBC even had a little thing with Jeremy Corbyn saying you've lost the authority to govern. It's brutal. So let's join them in the rare resignation watch of a failed, utterly disgraced prime minister that took on a task that was far, far above her station to deliver. Welcome to the soapbox.
Yeah.
All right, so this is number 10, Downing Street. We're waiting. The Prime Minister is going to come out here at some point. I don't know if she's going to dance. That will seem somewhat inappropriate if she does. Look at the guy. Look at the cop. Look at the cop. Oh, I love their cops. I love their cops. And you won't get shot. Isn't that rare? Isn't that rare? Beaten, yes. Beaten, yes. They will rough you up. But not shot, which, you know, I don't want to take a beating, but I definitely don't want to be shot. So, isn't this exciting? A woman, like, you must understand the situation here. The Prime Minister, people have been yelling at her to go. One guy yelled at her after the results of the local elections. They lost like 1,300 seats. The guy said, just go! Just go! He said it in a British way, that he was exasperated. Not just that, even in what the fuck was that? That woman tried to attack me, man. Even in PMQs, same thing. People would ask her, when are you leaving? When are you leaving? There were a list of people trying to get in contact with the Prime Minister to arrange meetings to talk to her to see when she is planning on leaving. She would not take any of those meetings because she knew exactly what those people wanted. When she gave that speech and she says, you know, I think we're in for a great future, by the time she even got to that point, that thing was dead on arrival. There's a certain degree of delusional thinking to believe that what she was pitching was going to be something that was going to be amenable to both sides. Labour doesn't want to accept it regardless. Just saying. And Jeremy Corbyn makes a really good point on that. I mean, granted, he doesn't want to accept it for political reasons, but also he makes a good point. Why would a Labour leader accept a deal from a Prime Minister that is not going to be there in a few weeks? Why? The person who's coming in behind her is going to rip that up. It's been tarnished by Theresa May's name. It means it's incapable of making a deal. Like, there's no deal that you can make with Theresa May that will withstand the next term or the next Prime Minister. Question becomes, does this force a general election? Now, Donald Trump is going to be in Britain in a few weeks, if I'm not mistaken. That's probably going to be her last act as a Prime Minister. God, that's a gross last act. That's a gross last act. That's like I'm trying to think of a similarity. It's like you're meeting somebody that has a really high position, but they had like really bad body odor. But the guy was still in that position. It's like, so you can say, yes, I met the President of the United States. You can leave out the part that it was Donald Trump. Where is she? I hope this is not going to last. You know, she's waiting forever to speak her piece. Oh,
No, it's okay. Actually,
she's
I'll
cute.
just
Pale, extremely pale. She's probably had vitamin D issues. But, cuteness makes up for vitamin D stuff. Where's Theresa May, man? Always late and never on time. The sad part is, part of me felt bad for her, if I'm being honest, up until a certain point. What tends to happen is I feel bad for Theresa May because of the situation, and then something will come up where I'm like, oh yeah, well, she earns it. Jeremy Corbyn was cross-examining her in PMQs, and he brings up the point that there are schools in England that have to close on Friday because they don't have enough money to keep themselves going, and they were trying to crowdfund for like books and pencils and paper and that type of stuff. I hear that, and I'm apoplectic about that, and I don't even live in Britain. Tax cuts. But it's like they're billionaires in your country, but you can't afford to get enough money to keep your government going? That's astonishing. Those kids are supposed to grow up, and they're going to run your society at some point. And it is formative years that those kids are enduring. Meaning, and I'm not necessarily saying one day is going to be the end-all be-all, but there's something disturbing about a government that they can't seem to keep itself running, especially for things like this that seems to be core functions, or should be core functions. Theresa May's response to this was, we've dumped a lot of money into the schools. And she sat down. As if it's like, I want to buy a car. The car is $12,000. I give the guy $8,000. And he tells me the car is $12,000. If you want this car, you're going to have to pay for the car. I mean, it's the same thing. If you want certain services or governmental services, you got to pay for those services. And in this case, she's made a decision, a priority decision, that the school matters less. That she doesn't want to put the money necessary into the schools. If she needs to raise taxes to pull that money, you need to raise taxes to pull that money. She doesn't want to do that. She wants to give the tax cuts. I guess my point is, I found that to be utterly disturbing. The universal credit thing in and of itself is disturbing on how bad it was. And an analysis of it got across that it was just done to be punitive to the poor. So, yeah. This is brutal. It should burn. She's earned it. She's utterly and entirely earned it. But I would prefer her to not be late. I want to know when you're going to leave, miss. When are you going to be on your way out? That's what we require of you. Weep for us. Cry and shake. I woke up earlier to look like a guinea pig. Like Paddington Bear. Oh, right. Paddington Bear. You're right. You're absolutely right. That's funny. Yeah, man, this has been brutal, though. Like, when David Cameron said, I quit, you look back on that and be like, fair enough. Because, man, she entirely fucked this up royally. They were already supposed to be out of the European Union. March 29th, I believe? And then it was pushed to like April. And then from April, she had to go hat in hand begging for another extension because she couldn't get her plan through Parliament. And then she kept putting her plan up, and that plan kept getting voted down. The first time it was voted down in historic margins. Whether you remember or not, the first time that she put her plan up, she was supposed to put it up earlier. She realized it was going to get voted down, and her cabinet was telling her, oh, dude, this is going to hurt. So the indignity of having to withdraw her plan was less than having it voted down in historic margins. But it was only postponed for the next month, in which case it arrived with its date of destiny of having the singular distinction of being voted down by those numbers, that many numbers. I think going back up to the 20s. And then she put it up again and voted down again. And then she took part of it out because Speaker of the House Burkow wouldn't let her keep bringing the same bill back over and over and over and over again. Then she went on to the media on television, gave a statement where she was blaming Parliament for not passing her bill. It is not Parliament's responsibility to just randomly pass anything. They're there at the behest of their constituents. Right, representative government. If they don't like what you're putting out, they don't have to pass it. This has not been the most dignified period for the UK. I'll just say it that way. And the Europeans were joking them pretty harshly over this stuff. Also, the willingness to get Assange and to extradite Assange is a fail to me, which makes me less sympathetic to what's taking place here. God, man, all right, I gotta be honest, I'm getting tired. I thought this was gonna be sooner rather than later. But they're waiting for an announcement. This other person, King Kif, is like, come on, mate. Come on. Come on. We're here to see you dance and shake. Cry and weep. Robert Lenoir, Bernie is going to start holding in-person fundraisers. This is not good. Check the article in Politico called Bernie New Approach to Raising Cash. I'll check it out, Rob. Bernie New Approach. Cash. Yeah, I'll check it out, Rob. I'm trying to see why that's bad, Rob, but I'm newer to the process. I think he's trying to say that it gives undue influence. Like, if say, for example, you work at a particular area, maybe you work for a particular company, maybe you have a particular clique and you have certain interests, and you're throwing that fundraiser for one Mr. Bernie Sanders. Does being around Sanders in person in that way, accepting money from that person in that way, endear you to that person, just on a human level? Meaning, if that person calls, you pick up. I know that person. That person gave me money. I was at that fundraiser. That person might have put multiple fundraisers for me. You know what I mean? I think that's Rob's point. But if these guys are only given the minimum, I mean, you know, if these guys aren't giving them, like, I give you an example. There was a situation where the guy was saying Bernie Sanders, the guy was talking about Bernie Sanders accepting, he was a millionaire and he wanted to give Sanders money. And Sanders was like, okay, just give me the max you can give me. Like, if they're only giving the max that they can give him, does this have the same effect? I think there's a human element to this. Meaning, if I'm putting money in your pocket, you know me because I put money in your pocket. Does that influence you in any way? I don't know. Maybe. I mean, we're not talking about a huge amounts of cash, nor are we talking about like super PACs. We're talking about just the same individual donations. Like, that's like saying, if somebody gave Sanders the max that they can give Sanders in this kind of sporadic way, just kind of around the country in these fundraisers, is that enough to entice Sanders to behave a particular way? There's no super PACs, there's no benefit, there's no corporations, there's none of that stuff. Does it affect him? I don't know. Honestly, don't know. They just wanted to get credit for the history of making the move. Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to tell. Like, if it's kind of like me doing my show. If somebody, there are certain people who give on Patreon, and all of the people, for the most part, send me ideas on what to run for the show. Insofar as it coincides with what I want to run, it's perfectly fine. I get to show something that my audience wants to show, and oftentimes you guys put me on the stuff that I didn't necessarily know myself. In Sanders' case, if he's dealing with like labor unions, that doesn't bother me in the least, because that's within the context of his own thing. If I start advertising on this channel, and I'm advertising Pepsi, you know, like it's like tastes great, that would be a little bit weird against my brand. If I'm advertising hats, well, I wear hats. Like, it's kind of that, I guess the chicken and the egg thing. He said that he would have the meetings with them. He didn't say there's a maximum. They're get to know him fundraisers. Yeah, but fundraiser. I mean, the key thing is fundraising. And by maximum, I just mean if they want to give him cash, like $27, or how much do they ever want to give him? I'm thinking max just in the sense of thinking the worst case scenario in regards to the amount they can give him. Is that enough to influence? And I don't know the answer to that. I mean, there might have been people all across the United States that gave Sanders money. I guess the question here, though, is that in-person contact, which is what I think you're getting at. Countries want their sovereignty. They don't want third person telling them what the European Union, about the country. You know what, Freddie Lexall, I think I agree with you on this. Honestly, I take the Galloway argument here on this whole sovereignty thing. Like, look at what they did to Greece. They crushed Greece. And not even just Greece. When you're talking about like Italy, for example. Italy wanted to run a budget deficit that was above the minimum or the maximum that the European Union would allow. And there was a fight back and forth. Now, Italians elected this government. It's who they put into office. Italy is supposed to be a country into its own right. The country, representative government, just like any other representative government. This is what they campaigned on, and they were trying to fulfill their campaign promise. And the European Union says, no. What? Are you telling me no in my own country? That's astonishing. Now, they, being good politicians, used the fact that the European Union was saying no as politics, to play against the European Union. Meaning they were already Eurosceptic, and so now they can play against this Euroscepticism and saying these guys are not allowing us to implement the policies that we voted for. It's amazing politics. Like it's we don't have anything similar to this in the United States. Maybe states' rights stuff, or states, or fighting the federal government over various things. But it's astonishing. And so now you have these blocks that are Eurosceptics, and you're going to get like 25%, maybe 30% of the European Parliament Eurosceptics. Britain, if Jeremy Corbyn got elected, and Jeremy Corbyn wanted to put through his political program, let's say like nationalize the railroads, nationalize the energy markets, ensuring that people get a percentage of the company where they're working, the European Union would not allow him to do that. They would disallow such a thing. If he wanted to save that steel company, if I'm not mistaken, they wouldn't even allow him to do that. And the trade deals that he rails against, he will be stuck in these trade deals without the ability to discharge himself or to vote on it. Like, he has a contradictory position here. But I guess my point is this: I agree with you. A country, ideally, would want its sovereignty. They would want to be able to enact the laws that they enact. If you notice, when France was put in the exact same situation, because Macron had the Yellow Vest movement that was tearing shit up and blowing shit up, they allowed Macron to do that. Meaning, when Macron ran the higher budget deficit than they were supposed to allow, they turned a blind eye to it, because the last thing they wanted to do is put him in dire straits. Meaning, Macron was already having a difficult time, and in order to pacify the population, he had to throw stuff overboard. He had to throw away material. And so they turned a blind eye. It was like, all right, he's having a hard time there. We're not going to fuck around. But yeah, I agree with you, man. The sovereignty argument makes sense to me. I don't, it's just, Jeremy Corbyn has come from the Tony Benn school of thought on this stuff. So he's Eurosceptic. I know he's a Eurosceptic, but he has to play a role of being close to Europe. And by the way, I have no issue with being close to Europe, but it is the issue of sovereignty. If your country wants to do something, it is very possible that Europe may disallow, especially if you're talking about doing something from the left. Galloway makes this point of saying it's in the bricks, meaning the neoliberalism is built into the European Union itself. Not to mention, the only body that's elected is the European Parliament. And they are toothless. It's a shadow of it's like, it's the appearance of doing something without there actually being, something being done. You can't have an organization that is, a-democratic, I don't think that's the word, but not democratic, and expect people to be fully engaged and involved in that process. If it's going well, they'll turn a blind eye, but the moment that stuff starts going to pot, gonna pick it apart. That immigrant thing rattled Europe. I swear to God. And the wild part about it is, it's almost like a karmic debt for Europe turning a blind eye to the United States blowing the hell out of Iraq. That's exactly what it is. It's like God himself taking vengeance. Ford Film Company, hey Jamal, Jimmy Dore wants his hat back. Jimmy Dore doesn't wear hats. Well, maybe he does. I don't know. Corbyn, he's Eurosceptic, but a coward. He's not a coward. He's not a coward. Bring on Brexit, right? I know, right? No, he's not. I don't think he's a coward. It's just, if you gotta understand the politics that are at work. Like, if you were in his position, you'd do the same thing. If Theresa May was in his position, she'd be doing the same thing. It's not, it's not the person to some degree. It's the politics compels it. The incentives built into the situation. Like for example, if Jeremy Corbyn declares himself a Leave Party, which he says they are under normal circumstances, unless something else happened, in which case they become a remand. It's just a bizarre fucking thing. He needs to pick a pony. But the catch is, that fudge may be saving him to some odd degree. Like, choosing a pony in something like this, where you have half of the public that's for it, half is against it, there is no good way to deal with it. Anything that you choose, somebody's going to punch you in the face. It's like, I'm Leave, bam. I'm Stay, bam. So how do you try to avoid getting tagged when you don't need to at the moment? Meaning, all of the weight of this is on the Prime Minister. Jeremy Corbyn is not the Prime Minister. Jeremy Corbyn, yes, is going to have to put up ideas and whatnot, but ultimately he's not the Prime Minister. The moment that he declares what he is, if he was the Prime Minister, somebody's going to hit him, he's going to lose support by some variance of the coalition that he's trying to keep together. Now, if he becomes Prime Minister, of course, this becomes somewhat of a can of worms that he has to deal with, just like Theresa May did. But what just happened? I don't know what just happened. But he's not a coward. He just doesn't have a choice. Like, he's playing politics. I mean, he's like, look, if I don't have to make a choice, I don't have to make a choice. And people are like, what are you Remain or Stay? Well, we'll remain unless the Prime Minister tries to put forth a deal that sucks, in which case we're willing to have a referendum. Now, I have to be honest, I think the referendum is an outright betrayal. I have some people on this channel that completely disagree with me. Your country had a referendum, a mass showing of support for this particular thing. More people voted in Brexit than any other British elections. And they said, let's leave. You don't have to like it, but it is what they chose. And now it's, let's have another referendum because we didn't like the first one. That's a fail. If you guys had won the referendum, there would be no hearing about this notion of having a second one. I mean, it's come on. And this notion of, okay, we need to have another referendum to verify the first referendum. Oh, God. It's like, okay. Yeah, I don't agree with the referendum stuff. That said, Britain, you're never leaving Europe. Now, here's the catch. The European Union, talking to Galloway made the point that the creation of the European Union had certain flaws that were built into it, particularly the monetary system that was going to force a certain degree of integration in order to fix the problem. Meaning, in order to fix a problem, there's more Europe. But the problem here is nobody, thought of a migrant surge during a time of austerity that created this wave of anti-Europe. Unforeseen consequences. What the hell are they doing? What are they doing? How not to take a punch in the face while facing Mike Tyson. I know, right? I guess my point is there's no good stance. There's no good stance to take on this. And by the way, the Tory party, They called for the referendum. They lost the referendum. They switched to Theresa May. Theresa May called a snap election. She lost that snap election, at least in the sense of numbers, and had a government propped up at the DUP. Look, this was a series of failures. A series of failures. Yeah, dude, it's good. Get her out here. Yes, it's good. It's good. It's good. Stop pointing. Get to where's your prime minister, man? Dude, where's your prime minister? That's crooked. That's crooked. Is it just me that's crooked? Look at this. That's crooked. It's like that. Yeah. Let me see if I can show it here. Yeah, I can't show it there. Time to become a full scapegoat, Theresa. I know, right? What you call a sin eater? Which is a sin eater. All of the sins and failures associated with Britain and British politics is going to get put on her. And yeah, she had one job, and that one job was Brexit. That one job was Brexit. And that is the one job she brilliantly failed at. Question becomes, can Jeremy Corbyn get an election? Can he get a snap election? Now, if he gets a snap election, he's going to have to declare what they are. Because if he becomes prime minister, people are going to have to know whether or not he's going to implement Brexit. He has been calling for a common market. Now, the catch with the common market is you're tying yourself to Europe again. Like, it's like, it's not the single market, so don't misunderstand me. But it's like a side trade deal where you still have to live up to the standards and everything else that Europe is putting out. So this notion of getting chlorinated chickens from America, I think that's what they call them, that's below the standards of Europe. I don't know why you would want to import that shit into the country anyway, but it would somewhat disallow that. Dude, what the fuck? 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 Jesus Christ. Where's Huawei, man? Why aren't they getting Huawei? I mean, they're having this many problems. They can't let Trump browbeat them out of better technology. Where's Theresa May, man? I want to see her dance and shake. I want to see her cry on camera. Weep for me, Theresa May. Cry. 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 Cry like those school kids when they couldn't go to school. Cry like those families that suffer from universal credit. Cry like those stab victims because you're cutting police stuff. Cry like those people that are on the gurneys because, again, you've cut. You would say you've given them a ton of money, but that boils down to cuts. Austerity. Austerity. And making people's lives miserable, especially the poor. So, yeah. Weep for me. I don't want to stiff upper lip. I want the shameless tears. I'm being sort of hard ass. I hated listening to that PMQ thing today and about the schools. That just seems. Britain is a rich country. Britain is a rich country. They have the cash. If you have one billionaire, there should be no reason for you to close your schools. Like, I don't have this belief. Yeah. The job of the society is not to make people billionaires. That is not the job of the society. If somebody just so happens to get a ton of cash, fair enough. But schools clearly have to come first. I don't even know whether it's an argument or in question. If it's between that guy becoming a billionaire or not being a billionaire and the schools can take care of, I'm taking care of the schools. That just seems like an obvious priority to me. if it's between that guy becoming a billionaire and people being able to afford their medication, then yeah, it's going to be people affording their medication. And yeah, I agree with Jeremy Corbyn. Nationalize the railroads. Nationalize the energy grids. There's certain vital industries that I believe that people should be in the hands of government. They shouldn't be in the hands of private control. There's certain things that I think are vital and crucial to the society that should be within the hands of the public control. Now, I would even make that food control. Meaning, in many of these places, they have these kind of rundown, dilapidated buildings to turn into greeneries where people can get nutritious food from. Automate the process where you don't even need a lot of human labor. There are things that can be done. There are jobs that can be created that go along with this very specific plan of doing exactly that. You can revolutionize this country in 10 years. But, you can't be spending $1 trillion on military while doing so. You can't do both. You got to pick a pony. You can't have people just making billions while kids going hungry. The number of food banks under the Tory government, even that's like that stat is brutal. Because those are people who would rather not be eating at food banks. And it shows a certain level of desperation associated with the society that Theresa May has presided over. So, this looks brutal. This looks painful. But it is. It is. Doesn't mean hasn't been earned. And doesn't mean there'll be a lot of people who are cheering the fact that she's leaving on. I am one of them. What I am hoping, however, is for a general election. That's what I want. That's what I want. Where is she, man? Get out here and resign. I hope she shocked the shit out of her and said, I'm resigning now, today, effective immediately. And she just walks out, gets on the plane and goes. She needs to resign, let Jeremy Corbyn go, yeah, agreed. Decentralized and localized. Yes. First and last, yes. Because think about it. If you have a system all throughout the United States where the point is, all right, we're going to get rid of food deserts. We're going to be able to make nutritious foods that at the very least people will be able to get nutritious greenery. And we're going to use these factories and buildings that have collapsed or that are no longer usable. And we're going to pay people to do this job. And those people, when they get their money, they're going to spend that money back into the economy that are going to create other jobs. We're going to grow from the bottom up, doing things that we need to do in order to repair our system, in order to make our system more sustainable. That would be my platform, and that would be my point of view. I don't see why that's a bad point of view. If I want to say I want to get rid of food deserts, and I'm hiring people to do that very specific job of creating a building that I can replicate all throughout the United States that essentially just grows food. That's all it does. Simplistic thing. You give it seeds, it automates the process, and it goes. People can come there and based on income can get certain subsidized foods. You deal with, an issue. Solar panels, same thing. I would have that exact same process with solar panels. Hiring people to go out various places across the United States and put those things on people's houses to make people energy independent. I want to explain to people and tell people that, hey, I'm going to lower your energy bill. In fact, you may not have an energy bill at all when I finish. Do you know they have battery packs now that you can plug into your houses? So when it's nighttime, the battery pack kicks in over time, over the course of the night. And during the daytime, it soaks in the sun and for the most part fills a battery pack. It's amazing. The amount of energy you need from the grid at that point dwindles to little to none. In fact, in many cases, giving power back to the grid. Every house should have something like that. In fact, houses should be produced like that. With this notion of being energy independent. I love this notion of being energy independent. There's a bill for $100 that you're not going to have to pay each month. Congratulations. And Bernie Sanders. Good. And by the way, they're jobs. Those are jobs. Those are jobs that people have to do in order to put those things up. And not just jobs. You're talking about good jobs. Decent paying jobs. Money that's going to be dumped back into the society, that's going to be coming back into the coffers in the form of taxes. You're growing the economy. Not to mention your own local industries, meaning solar panels and that type of stuff. No. And as for the Green New Deal, I am on board for this notion of well, there are a few things. So the feed of cows, half of climate change is cows, food, agriculture. If we change the feed of those, it could cut down on like the flatulence of cows or something by like 99% or something, or 90%. So that would, I would imagine, have to be subsidized, because that's something more societal cares about. The catch here is this. The subsidy that's taking place shouldn't be entirely something that the United States has to pay, seeing as it was the businesses that created the problem. I'm done with this notion of socializing the problems while taking the benefits. Oil and gas companies were able to reap massive benefits, getting subsidies in the process of reaping those benefits, not to mention the animal ag industry. Well, it's time they pay that back. Meaning there needs to be somewhat of a tax on those industries in order to recoup money for the environmental damage that they caused. I understand that it's not only going to be in the United States, but there needs to be something real done with climate change, full stop. And the industries that were responsible for it, or at the very least, the subsidies need to stop. It needs to be transferred over into green assignments. Yeah, man, we are falling behind big time. Where's Theresa May? Come on, Theresa. Sandra Steele, don't believe in climate change. Well, I'm sorry you don't, Sandra Steele. I don't know which doctor. Okay, I'm not going to say which doctor. But at this point, if it's not, it's like I don't believe all those scientists. I just, I know stuff. Look, okay, fair enough. You know stuff. Let the kids eat, yes.
Can they see the live view? Can they see the live view?
Let your car charge your body or pack while you drive. But that's an interesting thing too, right? Like as you're, like there, one of the things that Jack Fresco kind of coined was when you're design technology with this notion of like to solve the problem, if that makes sense. Like so a stoplight. Well, anybody can run a stoplight. You have to rely on human beings to run that, as opposed to having some kind of signal in the car that automatically stops when the stoplight starts. You know what I mean? Like, or having a bar come up that prevents the cars. Now, that's more work, but it's a better design. Even, the thing is, our technology is getting to the point where we can do really bad-ass stuff. We just have this limiting factor of cash. So, yeah, I would love the government to spend money like it does on military, on actual, real stuff that people need, and it's legitimate. What the hell is Theresa May doing? Somebody said she's smoking weed. Somebody said force Gollum out of the cave. Gollum May. What is going on? Everybody's getting quiet. Everybody's getting quiet. Shh. Everybody's getting quiet. Oh. Yes! 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 Dance and shake for me. Dance and shake. Hi, Theresa.
Ever since I first stepped through the door behind me as Prime Minister, I have striven to make the United Kingdom a country that works not just for the result of the EU referendum. Back in 2016, we gave the British people a choice. Against all predictions, the British people voted to leave the European Union. I feel as certain today as I did 3 years ago that in a democracy, if you give people a choice, you have a duty to implement what they decide. I have done my best to do that. I negotiated the terms of our exit and a new relationship with our closest neighbours that protects jobs, our security and our union. I have done everything I can to convince MPs to back that deal. Sadly, I have not been able to do so. I tried 3 times. I believe it was right to persevere, even when the odds against success seemed high. But it is now clear to me that it is in the best interests of the country for a new Prime Minister to lead that effort. So I am today announcing that I will resign as leader of the Conservative and Unionist Party on Friday the 7th of June, so that a successor can be chosen. I've agreed with the party chairman and with the chairman of the 1922 committee that the process for electing a new leader should begin in the following week. I have kept Her Majesty the Queen fully informed of my intentions, and I will continue to serve as her Prime Minister until the process has concluded. It is, and will always remain, a matter of deep regret to me that I have not been able to deliver Brexit. It will be for my successor to seek a way forward that honours the result of the referendum. To succeed, he or she will have to find consensus in Parliament where I have not. Such a consensus can only be reached if those on all sides of the debate are willing to compromise. For many years, the great humanitarian Sir Nicholas Winton, who saved the lives of hundreds of children by arranging their evacuation from Nazi-occupied Czechoslovakia through the Kinder transport, was my constituent in Maidenhead. At another time of political controversy, a few years before his death, he took me to one side at a local event and gave me a piece of advice. He said, "Never forget that compromise is not a dirty word. Life depends on compromise." He was right. As we strive to find the compromises we need in our politics, whether to deliver Brexit or to restore devolved government in Northern Ireland, we must remember what brought us here. Because the referendum was not just a call to leave the EU, but for profound change in our country. A call to make the United Kingdom a country that truly works for everyone. I'm proud of the progress we have made over the last 3 years. We have completed the work that David Cameron and George Osborne started. The deficit is almost eliminated. Our national debt is falling, and we are bringing an end to austerity. My focus has been on ensuring that the good jobs of the future will be created in communities across the whole country, not just in London and the South East, through our modern industrial strategy. We have helped more people than ever enjoy the security of a job. We are building homes, buyers onto the housing ladder, so young people can enjoy the opportunities their parents did. And we are protecting the environment, eliminating plastic waste, tackling climate change, and improving air quality. This is what a decent, moderate and patriotic Conservative government on the common ground of British politics can achieve, even as we tackle the biggest peacetime challenge any government has faced. I know that the Conservative Party can renew itself in the years ahead, that we can deliver Brexit and serve the British people with policies inspired by our values. Security, freedom and opportunity. Those values have guided me throughout my career. But the unique privilege of this office is to use this platform to give a voice to the voiceless, to fight the burning injustices that still scar our society. That is why I put proper funding for mental health at the heart of our NHS long-term plan. It's why I'm ending the postcode lottery for survivors of domestic abuse. It is why the race disparity audit and gender pay reporting are shining a light on inequality. And it is why I set up the independent public inquiry into the tragedy at Grenfell Tower, to search for the truth, so nothing like it can ever happen again, and so the people who lost their lives that night are never forgotten. Because this country is a union, not just a family of 4 nations, but a union of people, all of us. Whatever our background, the colour of our skin, or who we love, we stand together, and together we have a great future. Our politics may be under strain, but there is so much that is good about this country, so much to be proud of, so much to be optimistic about. I will shortly leave the job that it has been the honour of my life to hold. The second female Prime Minister, but certainly not the last. I do so with no ill will, but with enormous and enduring gratitude to have had the opportunity to serve the country I love.
Okay, I'm gonna be honest. I didn't think she was gonna cry for real. Now I feel bad about my children's part. Yeah, I feel bad. I feel bad. I feel horrible. Oh, that hurt. That's brutal, man. Because that means that the entire speech she was holding that shit in. Just at the last minute, to serve the country I love. That's fucking brutal. Yeah, I feel bad. I feel horrible now. I know all of the crummy stuff that Theresa May was doing in that office and making people's lives miserable and everything else. But I don't like to see her crying. That's rough, man. Let's see that again. Let's see that again. Let's see if we can see that again. Oh wait, I can't see it again. Oh, then I'll let me see it again. Damn it! They're not letting me rewind the video. Right there. It's blurry, it's hard to see, but right there, like that. Yeah, that's rough, man. That's a toughie. Refresh the page. Let's see. Oh, excellent.
We have made over the last 3 years. We have completed the work that David Cameron is to use this platform. Together, we have a great future. Our politics may be under strain, but there is so much that is good about this country. Female Prime Minister, but certainly not the last. I do so with no ill will, but with enormous and enduring gratitude to have had the opportunity to serve the country I love.
Wow. You know, David Cameron was crying too when he left. When, Jeremy Corbyn has said something to him, he's like, why don't you just go, man? Like, he just freaks out, gets all emotional and hysterical. Stressful. Don't get me wrong, a lot of what she was saying there was nonsense. Compromise? Theresa May didn't compromise until it became extraordinarily clear that she was busted, that nobody would get her a deal. At that point now, she didn't want to, own it. And so she's, trying to get labor to sign on to the, this kind of death cult of sorts. Labor didn't want to sign on to that. And yeah, you were toxic at that point. And no, you had no capacity to deliver any deal. And no, you didn't compromise until the very end where you were at your ropes left. Compromise. Get out of here. And by the way, lowering the deficit is not the end all and be all. How many food kitchens, food things? Like, I guess my point is, if your country is experiencing poverty where you're making people's lives harder, the fact that you're lowering the deficit matters less. That's not the end all be all. And anyone that watched Prime Minister Questions know that Theresa May has this way of arguing of, well, we put money into this. That's all we could afford. But that's not enough. Yeah, but that's all we could afford. Yes, we had to give those tax cuts because those billionaires needed more money. Yeah, man, this is brutal. This is brutal. That's so fucking sad. So fucking sad. All right. Well, Theresa May did her thing. I gotta be honest, I didn't think she was gonna cry. The crying, Trump wouldn't call, he was texting. He was tweeting. Yeah, tweeted. She doesn't love her country. She just loves the game playing with the powerful tax breaks for the rich, austerity for the masses. Yeah, that's exactly what it was. Did David Cameron really cry? Look at that last video with Cameron's last PMQs. And the last question that Jeremy Corbyn asks, Cameron breaks down and screams, "Go, man, just go." Take a look at it. It's there. I swear to God. I don't know if they were tears. I'm not saying they were tears, but he did break down at the end. All right, I'm going to end this. I just thought it was interesting. Theresa May watch. This will be the only time you get to see this because she will be out June 7th. And if I'm not mistaken, that's when her bill is supposed to go up for a vote and it's supposed to be voted down. The compromise? Get out of here. Get out of here. And yeah, tax breaks and then austerity for everybody else. And it's like, oh, we can't afford to open schools on Fridays. What? What? You can't afford to open schools on Fridays? You just gave tax cuts. How are you doing both? How are you effectively saying we don't have enough revenue to keep our schools open, a vital interest to our kids? Or to put, cops on the street? Or to invest in the NHS? You can go down the list. And in all of these cases, she always acts like, oh, I invested so much into this or that. This notion of tax cuts while you simultaneously disallow kids to go to school on Fridays is abysmal. Like, I don't even live in Britain, and I was apoplectic listening to that. We need more billionaires, not schools. All right, I'll end this. If you guys enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe. And of course, you guys can always support the PayPal or Patreon. First, last, thank you. Oh, thank you, man. I appreciate it. I didn't go with my baby. Gordon Mack must be happy. Yeah, he's going to be happy because he's been waiting for her to leave. Yes, he is. Aqua Dark, you missed. Yeah, you just missed it. You just missed it by like maybe 5 minutes. Theresa May came out, gave her last speech, wept at the end, and hurried back to the room. Painful. Painful, painful, painful. Off to a footnote. Boris Johnson for the win. That's who, man. You know, the funny part is, if you remember, Boris Johnson had the opportunity to try to run the first time around, and he didn't take it. He passed it up. So it looks like he is going to jump on that opportunity this time. They're talking about him, Dominic Raab. I can't think of the other woman's name. But there will be a few people for a leadership contest. So stay tuned. I'll be following it. Thanks all. See you in a few.